What's up, Navigating Academia family? This is Dr. J. Phoenix Singh coming at you to be able to answer a valued viewer's question. Before we get started, you guys know that I love you, so please do take a second to smash that like button. Helps to be able to make sure that not just this video, but all the videos on our channel within our community get spread around so that we have even more new people able to engage with our content. You guys know me, my number one goal for all of us here on the channel is to be able to help one another out and to be able to develop a positive academic community. Within academia, that can be a little bit difficult to find sometimes. So our mission is to be able to help each other. You guys all helping one another and myself serving to be able to facilitate that. One of the ways that I do that is that whenever you guys ask what I call a high sensitivity question, meaning a question that I think will be of interest to all 6,000 plus subscribers on the channel, then what I'm going to do is do my best to be able to make a video response. If you ask a question down in the comments below and I see it to be very high specificity, meaning that we need to do a deep dive into it so that I can best help you, I am going to ask you guys to book a one-on-one session with me. If you ever want to talk about your career, getting into grad school, getting a postdoc, best ways to be able to get grants, to be able to get edited book contracts, you name it, be sure to contact me. My personal email address to be able to book a session is drphoenixsingh@gmail.com. I'll put that down in the description below as well. And remember, at the end of the day, even though on my website I get booked up really fast for consult sessions, if you still want a consult, email me and I will make sure that whenever I have a free slot that I give it to you, okay? I get busy really quick, as I'm sure you guys can understand, but I care about you and I care about your success, okay? So let's get right into it. Today's question comes from Suyash. Suyash, thank you so much, mate, for being a subscriber, for watching videos on the channel. You're always saying very kind things and I really appreciate it. It's very encouraging to me, so thank you. So let's go ahead and take a look at Suyash's comment, which was on a video that I made called What is an Open Access Journal? And this was in my series on academic publishing. So let's go ahead and read Suyash's question. So Suyash says, one question, Dr. Singh, why do many scholars see reviewing for journals, like being a peer reviewer, as an unpaid activity? I'd like to know your opinion. Writing and reviewing papers are part of the publication process, as we need to review papers to understand how we can write better papers. Now, also, guys, before I keep reading, make sure if you guys want to learn how to be able to publish papers in high-impact journals, literally the #1 resource on the internet is Publication Academy, so check it out at www.publicationacademy.com. Reviewing also helps to provide feedback to other scholars and in the process helps us to know the latest debates in the field and how we can shape them. As a university pays scholars, what is the motivation to ask for more money? I think you're trying to say, on one hand, scholars demand payment for the review services, but then never pay for the data collection to the different experts in the industry, government, civil society, academia, etc., which are important for writing papers. We often interview experts and respondents for collecting data in social sciences for the papers we write and never pay them for the time they spend with us. Some experts spend 1 to 2 hours of their valuable time to help with the data collection process. It seems a bit confusing as to why many academics never look at the complete picture. Okay, so Suyash, you make a lot of valued points here. And so the way that I'm going to frame my response is basically, why is it that academics sometimes never really think about getting paid for the peer review process itself, right? So for anybody who doesn't know how academia works when it comes to publishing papers, what happens is that you'll conduct a study, write up a manuscript following some kind of a standardized structure. So for example, you can follow a referencing system such as American Psychological Association's 7th edition, for example, and there's Chicago style, and there's Harvard style, and there's literally over 20 different recognized styles used by different fields. The preponderance of research papers published every year across fields, though, use American Psychological Association style, even if it's not in psychology, okay? And this is used by dozens and dozens of different fields. So what happens is that you write the manuscript up, you use a different structure depending on whether it's a primary study, so like an individual and experiment, or a secondary study like a meta-analysis, a systematic review, and so forth. And also you would write it up differently if you're doing a letter to the editor, an editorial, some sort of, journal-specific debate structure, whatever it happens to be. And again, watch all of the Publication Academy modules if you want to know all about this stuff. So what happens is that eventually you're ready to be able to submit the manuscript that you've written up to a journal, preferably one that already has an impact factor. And what happens is that when you submit it, it's not just the editor-in-chief and their associate editors that are taking a look. One of the associate editors is going to take your journal article, so your manuscript, which you hope to be a journal article, and they're going to disseminate it out to peer reviewers, usually a minimum of 2, but it usually ends up being 3 or more. And this can happen for 1 round, it can happen for multiple rounds. I remember one time I had 9 peer reviewers and 4 different peer review cycles for a journal that had an impact factor. It was a general medical journal, very famous one. And it ended up literally having an impact factor of over 30. And that to date is still one of my top 5 most commonly cited manuscripts. So here's the deal, guys. When that ends up going out, the peer reviewers themselves, including editorial board members other than the editor-in-chief and the associate editors of the journal, they're like never getting paid, like rarely if ever. And this is seen as professional service. Now, you guys will hear me talk a lot on this channel about following the money because academics never want to talk about money. At the end of the day, you usually see these 2 different camps. You see these business people who have no experience or minimal experience in academia, at least being a full-time academic, but they have dollar signs in their eyes, and they come in and get involved with the publishing process to be able to essentially make money, right? And I'm a capitalist. I have no problem with people making money whatsoever, right? On the other hand, though, you have academics who basically view, scientific integrity as the most important thing, as it should be, being objective as the most important thing, which it should be, and they think that basically doing anything for money whatsoever is kind of selling out. Now, of course, if you're in different kinds of sciences, for example, a biomedical science or a form of engineering where oftentimes you're developing something where, let's say in engineering, maybe you patent something, obviously there can be a financial component of that. And sometimes universities even have these technology transfer departments which can facilitate taking scientific discoveries in academia and translating them into sometimes lucrative business opportunities. But this is something that at the end of the day, most academics, including in my field, which is behavioral health, rarely, if ever, are people looking at this as a way to kind of make money off of research. Now, most of the time you have a structure that involves something akin to tenure, right? So in the United States, for example, where you've got the classic structure of you're being an undergrad, grad student, postdoc, assistant professor, associate professor, which where you get tenure, and then full professor. In something like this, especially when you're an assistant professor, really what you need to do for that tenure clock, which is usually between 4 to 5 years, depending on the university you're dealing with, really what you want to do is focus on a lot of different things. You want to publish, you want to get some funding, you want to get a lot of positive student feedback forms, and you want to do a lot of professional service, not only with, let's say, working with different associations, for example, like let's say that there's a leading national association for, like in my case, psychologists. Maybe you want to get involved with them and serve on a committee. Maybe there's a departmental committee that you can sit on. Whatever it happens to be, you need to show that you are of use to the group. Okay, this makes you higher value. And at the end of the day, I wish that you would get paid a lot more for these things, but usually it's just assumed that you're doing this to be an academic. It's just part of your academic career. It's not like in other fields where maybe if you do more, you get paid more. So, me, I'm weird, right? Because I've worked in the clinical sector, in the research sector, in the government sector, and also as an entrepreneur. And I've been successful as an entrepreneur, which is hard enough in the first place. Not in private practice, actually building from the ground up and scaling and eventually through mergers and acquisitions, selling a large-scale business. And so in all these different pieces of the puzzle, there's different things that you can be paid more or less for. I remember when I used to, work for the government, and I would want to work past 5 p.m. in the evening, and they would say working on, let's say, a paper, and I would be told, no, you're not going to be paid any extra. In fact, you can't do it. And that was really hard for me. Versus when I was in regular academia, the idea of not working later into the evening on manuscripts to hit internally set deadlines was a real challenge for me. I was working too much, right? Same thing when I was an entrepreneur, working crazy hours for multiple years, 7 days a week. In 3.5 years, I took literally 13 days off when I was building and then selling my first company. And that's just kind of what it takes. There's no complaining allowed. Remember what Teddy Roosevelt said once, Suyash, which is that if you complain and you don't have a plan, then that's just whining, right? And I never respect people who whine. I'm sure you're not somebody who whines yourself. Sounds like you're a very hardworking person. So at the end of the day, I know it can be confusing. Why is it that academics wouldn't see the whole picture, that somebody's making a lot of money and it's not them, right? So like I said, in the overwhelming preponderance of fields, for the overwhelming preponderance of journals, which are run largely by 5 big publishers, right? So this is Springer, Sage, Elsevier, or some people say Elsevier, Wiley, and then there's a variety of other ones, the largest university press being Oxford University Press, right? These guys are not paying folks, not paying them well, especially, even if they're the editors-in-chief or the associate editors. We're talking for an associate editor like $2,000 to $3,000 for the average journal, even though it can go higher or lower. And that's for the full year. This isn't like per month. People aren't making money in academia, but a lot of people are making money off of academics' backs. That is absolutely a thing. When it comes to open access journals, right, this is also a little bit different because, and we can talk about open access some other time. If you guys have specific questions, you can put them down in the comments below on this after you've watched the video on the channel, which again is called What is an Open Access Journal? If you want to Google that and the name of the channel, which is Navigating Academia, you can find it, you can watch it, and then you can ask some questions, okay? But if you have questions about that, you can definitely ask them. I'll do my best to be able to respond, okay? Now, it's certainly something where one of the things that Suyash is saying is scholars demand payment for the review services. Okay, they don't do that, right? So scholars are not demanding money for it. That's actually really rare, right? That any scholar would demand money for doing peer reviews, right? Like I'm an ad hoc reviewer for over 50 journals. Never once have I asked for money. That said, if you're going to review a book, usually what happens is one of the big publishers, which control over 90% of all academic books published every year, as well as over 90% of all journals, academic journals, reputable ones. What happens is that they will pay you, but it's not a lot of money. So like I usually get offered $100 to $300 US to be able to review. For me, it's not worth the time. I do recommend that if you ever want to get into writing books, a great way to be able to get familiar and to be able to show the high quality of your work to so-called acquisitions editors is to do 1 or 2 academic book reviews. I don't recommend doing more than one a year. It's going to take you an absurd amount of time, but if you're a junior academic or you're more senior, but you want to get into book publishing, that's a great way to be able to go, guys, okay? So that is what I would say. The last thing that I'll mention is that one thing that's getting more popular these days in terms of funding research is not only getting funding from grant funding agencies, and remember, check out Publication Academy, www.publicationacademy.com, because we have master classes in finding grants, so grant seeking, grant writing, so writing the proposals to make them successful to get the money, and then grant management. So after you've already got them, what do you do to actually make sure that you come up with a sustainable and successful relationship with a funder, okay? So that's what I've got to say about that. But in terms of getting money, especially these days, we talk about in the grant seeking module of Publication Academy how it is that these days, even things like crowdfunding, like you think about Indiegogo and these things, right? Crowdsourcing, or not crowdsourcing, crowdfunding, is getting much more popular in this day and age. So you may want to take a look into that as well in terms of ways for the average citizen to get into funding, even if it's, $1, $5, peer-reviewed research. So that's something really cool that's really new, and it follows kind of this movement that we call open science. And this covers open access, open data, open software, you name it. We actually have a whole Publication Academy module all about open science and contemporary open science best practices, so be sure to check it out. But that's what I've got for you guys today. Lots of love. Please do make sure to book an appointment one-on-one with me if you want to talk about your particular situation. It'd be a pleasure to hear from you. All right, have a great day. Talk to you in the next one. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video with your friends, colleagues, and students, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.